The marketplace was another pivot. The whole journey, 2015, has been pivot, where the guiding principle has been do more on HubSpot. And that's taken us into coaching dozens of smaller agencies, bringing them along with us. It led to establishing a managed service of PandaDoc. So we've got hundreds of companies on PandaDoc and have had for years. And most of those are customers of agencies. And so when we were doing the billing for our PandaDoc managed service, it was always a challenge of what's the most effective way to build this. Commerce Hub wasn't really a thing yet. And so I went looking at what marketplaces are out there. Could we grab one and plug it in? Because it's not going to be just about one app. If we're billing a customer monthly for 3 things, we don't want to bill them 3 separate times. How about we just send them one invoice? A marketplace would do that. So I spoke to AppDirect. I don't know if you know those guys at all. Have you heard of AppDirect?
No.
It's amazing because they became a unicorn company in 2014. They are like the marketplace provider. So Comcast, their marketplace is built out of AppDirect. Telstra Australia, so they deal with some big companies for their marketplaces. And they, I think, tried to sell HubSpot marketplace years ago as well, saying you should use our software, don't build your own. But yeah, HubSpot did their own thing.
Dax, I just spilled a Coke Zero all over my keyboard. So
oh my
God! Carry this one for me for 1 second.
Oh, great. Keyboard's not thirsty anymore. But I remember that's kind of how we originally met, Pete, was about looking at marketplace and potentially when I had Appgamist, like bringing some of those things in to that marketplace. But yeah, tell us about the version of that,
Yeah, marketplace solved a big problem for us because it just streamlined all of the billing of all of the PandaDoc licenses, allocation of seats to users, and so on. But wanted to broaden it beyond Doc. And I was talking to a bunch of other software vendors, and including Connor Jeffers at the time. Connor was talking about building a CPQ back in 2021. And I said, that'd be great if you could do it now, Connor, because I need it right now. And we talked about, we have this whole marketplace billing engine. Maybe you don't need to build a whole billing engine around it. You could just plug the software into the marketplace. And we ended up starting the HubDo podcast around that time as well, where I was interviewing app developers, speaking to, like you were saying at the start of this show, I interviewed Dan and Austin, OrgChart Hub, all those guys about you're building in the HubSpot marketplace. And the concept behind it was we knew that building a billing engine is a ton of work. So if you're building one app and that app's not going to be free, how are you going to bill it? And then you build a second app. Are you going to build a whole billing engine separate for that as well? And the smart developers who have multiple apps have then built their own console and billing engine. So that's what AppDirect was for us. We launched the HubDo marketplace. We had a session on it at Inbound a few years back. And but we weren't really ever successful at having other apps saying, hey, we want to be on your marketplace, because our marketplace doesn't attract traffic. It's a tool to save app developers having to build their own billing engine. But everybody builds their own billing engine anyway.
That's a huge value add for app developers because they don't want to build a billing engine. They want to just build their damn app. So I feel like a lot more people should be knowing about this, especially when they're like first started like building something and they've got like a really good idea. And then it's, oh man, can't take it to market because I don't know how to charge people for this thing.
Yeah, and it's a little bit when you have to have multiple things, right? It's about when you have multiple apps. And again, it's early.
Multiple apps, even one.
When on day one, we had 4 apps. Just like when we started. We had all the apps all the time because that's all we did. But we already had a building engine, which is one from like another project that we just bolted on. But it's a thing that you have to do and you don't want to do. And on top of that, you also don't want to, there's a lot of other stuff that you probably don't want to do. But let's talk about, speaking of billing and speaking of that, let's talk about how HubSpot and being on the platform itself. One of our biggest missions and goals one day is to take over that Shopify model where it's, take some percentage of my app, just throw it right into the same bill. What are your thoughts? What are your dreams for how it would be easier for apps like yours to be distributed via HubSpot?
Well, HubSpot was all about SMB when it started. And now, because it's shooting from the enterprise stars, and it's a given that's going that way. And but a consequence of that is that you can find there's now this increasing audience of, it's too big for me now. I can't bring the whole HubSpot machine in. But there's so many businesses out there that just have a handful of staff, electrical contractors, these folks, where there are other apps like ServiceMate or Tradeify and so on, where people are relying on that to run their electrical engineering business, whatever that might be. But the app they're using is not a CRM. It's just so lacking in what HubSpot would do. But if they had HubSpot, then they'd have to have HubSpot and this other thing. So the thing that I'm tempted to dive in and do, but particularly because of the new licensing model, now that a small business can just buy 3 sales seats, they don't have to sign up and donate an arm and a leg. That's what I'd like to see, is something that out of the box is really great for tradespeople and so on. And so that's something I'd love to build. If somebody else wants to build it, I'd throw it into our portfolio 100%.
Yeah. I think it's like, for me, it's the scheduling one, Dax, that we've always talked about. And it just, I think the same way, like Pete, I would love to, I think like selfishly, I would love to build something that makes the free version of HubSpot like actually useful for someone. You know what I mean? Especially when you like, we've had this like idea that we've tossed around called Book Happily for a wicked long time, right? Where it's just like the scheduler on HubSpot. And like, for me, it was just like, when you look at something like a salon or like a small gym or like any of these small mom and pop stores that run on the idea of like appointments, not booking a meeting like the meetings tool does.
Yeah.
Those are the people that don't buy HubSpot because it doesn't do that. But like, for example, if you were a barber, right? And you had a list of people who came in to get their haircut last month, those free 2,000 emails that you could send with HubSpot free, all of a sudden become so much more useful. And that is like the thing I feel like that HubSpot's missing with so much of that SMB, but do they care about them anymore? Which is the tough part. But it's, every business starts small. And it's like, you might have the next Floyd's barbershop chain that starts because they were able to be on HubSpot when it was just one location or something like that. And it's just like, I do love that idea of building apps for the people that just need that one more thing to make HubSpot make sense for them, and to give them a reason to use all these other tools that they're not thinking of, because it doesn't do the one thing that's like core to their business, which is why I've always had like a special place in my heart for like scheduling and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I like that.
Yep.